As we open things just a minute late, but we really appreciate you joining us. And to get us started, while we give people maybe another 30 seconds to join, we would love to hear from you in the chat where you're joining us from. Do a little warm up in the chat, and then we'll get started in just a few seconds. Great, welcome everyone. All right, we've got the Americas covered and Indonesia. Great. Awesome. Welcome. Japan, Nairobi. Got all over the US and Canada. Peru, Argentina. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Cameroon, Canada. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And we are recording this, so you will have access to this within the next, I would say by the end of the week is usually our goal. So we'll share the recording and any resources that we mention in here as well. So just want to thank you all once again for joining us for this applicant webinar for the EE 30 Under 30 2024 call for nominations. The goal of this webinar is to help you all write a strong nomination, whether that's for yourself or if you're nominating someone else, and just to help you learn more about the EE 30 Under 30 program, how we approach environmental education and leadership, and what makes a strong nomination, including some advice, some overall advice from us. We will also try to leave as much time as possible at the end to answer any questions. And if we run out of time or if we don't get to your question, please email us, and we are happy to help over email as well. And as I said, this is going to be recorded and we'll share within the next few days. And before we dive in, I just want to emphasize how excited, again, we are to have you here, and to see so much interest in this program that's recognizing and building leadership in environmental education of all forms around the world. And we really do hope that you find this webinar helpful. We want to support you all the best that we can. We want to help you write a strong nomination, and we also hope that the advice that we can give you here might help you with other opportunities as well, with other scholarships, with other programs that you're applying for. So we really do hope that you find this, the advice that we have here helpful. All right. So next up, a few Zoom logistics before we really dive in. For the most part, we will ask all of you to stay muted while others are speaking. Please share any questions or comments in the chat throughout. Madeline, my colleague, and I are going to be watching the chat and responding or teeing up questions in the chat. And we will stop periodically to answer relevant questions as we go through the content of the webinar. So if we don't answer your question right away, don't worry, we will get to it. We might just be waiting for the right time to answer it. We also have closed captions and automated translations available, I think in like over 100 languages or something. So you can turn on the captions and the translations by clicking on the CC button in the bottom toolbar of your Zoom window. And if you click a little arrow next to the CC button, you'll find the options to translate the captions into other languages. If you have any issues with Zoom or with figuring out the captions or translations, feel free to message either me or Madeline, and we will do our best to help out. And just give you a quick overview of how we'll spend the next hour or so. We're going to start out by introducing you all to us, to the North American Association for Environmental Education and the Global Environmental Education Partnership. We'll also share a little bit about how we approach environmental education. What are some of the key values or principles that we see in environmental education? We'll share a little bit more about the program and the benefits that come from being a EE 30 under 30. And then we'll walk through the whole application. We'll give you some overall advice. We'll answer some common questions, and then we'll hopefully have some time at the end to answer any other questions that you have. And I have not introduced myself yet. My name is Nina Hamilton. I am the Senior Manager of EE 30 under 30 and International Programs at the North American Association for Environmental Education. And I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Madeline. And I'm going to turn it over to her to introduce herself and then carry us into the next section.
Thanks, Nina, and hi, everyone. Again, welcome to the webinar. Really excited to have you join us today. My name's Madeline. I'm the International Programs Specialist, and I help support EE 30 under 30, and it's, like Nina said, it's one of the highlights of our work here. So super excited to talk about it today. And before we dive into the application or anything, I wanted to just give you a background about our organization. So NAAE, or the North American Association for Environmental Education, it's a mouthful, is the professional association champion and backbone organization for the field of environmental education, or EE. So we work across the US, Canada, Mexico, but also all around the world to advance environmental education and provide or promote environmental literacy and civic engagement. Yeah, and we have a strong commitment to justice, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We have a wide range of programs, including things like linking research to practice. We host webinars, we support networks, and just a wide range of people that are part of our larger network and network of networks that make us up. And so you can find all about our programs, opportunities, and resources by visiting our website. And there's a lot there. And then in addition, we also have the Global Environmental Education Partnership, or the GEEP. So the GEEP is a program between the US EPA and the Taiwan Ministry of Environment, and NAAE is the secretariat. So we help with a lot of the programming. And GEEP supports EE 30 under 30. And the GEEP is a global network that aims to build capacity and strengthen EE around the world. And we also have a number of resources and opportunities exploring EE practice and policies around the globe on our website, as well as a newsletter that we encourage you to sign up for. So before we dive into more of the application, I do want to just touch base on what is environmental education. We recognize that many of you probably already know a lot about EE, but some of you may not, or maybe this would be a great refresh. And so EE goes beyond knowledge sharing and awareness raising. It's about equipping people with the tools, skills, and motivation to be stewards of the environment. So EE is very much a learning process. It's about developing critical thinking skills to make informed decisions about the environment. And so to sum it up, we often say EE is not about what to think or telling people what to think, but it's about how to think. It encourages open discussion and problem solving to build capacity of people and groups to address sustainability issues in your community. So EE provides several opportunities for people to learn about the environment and sustainability issues, including the roles that we play and the connections that we see across social, environmental, and economic pillars. EE helps build skills to address those sustainability issues, and also to reflect on the values and attitudes that people have towards the environment and sustainability. And ultimately, EE helps people make informed decisions to take action using the knowledge and skills that they've gained, and also to build capacity for their community and to work towards shared goals together. So when we think about the objectives or goals of environmental education, we generally focus on the following categories. So awareness, helping people gain an awareness of their environment and environmental issues. Knowledge, helping people gain experience and basic understanding of their environment. helping people build a set of attitudes, values, and a sense of concern for the environment, and also helping them have the motivation to actively participate in protecting their environment. And then helping people gain skills needed for identifying and solving environmental problems, and encouraging people to participate or providing opportunities where people can participate and be actively involved to address environmental issues. And these are all from the Tbilisi Declaration, which is what we like to call the foundation of EE. And I'm going to provide that resource for you in just a few minutes here. So when we're thinking about EE as a whole, it's important to note that the way we've described and defined it today is based on our core values for our organization and network, as well as its Tbilisi Declaration. But we recognize that EE comes in many different forms, across generations, and in so many different contexts. And so what EE looks like to you may be different than what we've described, and we'd love to hear about that in your 30 Under 30 nomination. And if you're new to EE, or if you'd like to explore more about EE, we encourage you to go to our website. Nina can put this link in the chat, I think, or we're going to send these to you also. And we have pages and learning modules about what is EE and why it matters. And then the second link here is a link to the Tbilisi Declaration that I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to read through that. So I'm going to pass it back to Nina to talk about the program itself, and then later on I'll come back here and talk more about the application.
Great. Thank you so much, Madeline. And yes, and please also do continue to share any questions in the chat. I've been responding in there as they come up, but we'll also get to questions throughout. Oop, just lost the screen share there.
Sorry, give me just a minute. It looks like it crashed.
Oh no, no problem. Would it help if I shared? Or here, I can't answer this other question in the meantime. Oh, great. There we go. All right, Shalom. We'll get to your question. Oh, Madeline, you've got the wrong version. There you go. Shalom, we'll get to your question when we're talking about the application. Great questions so far. So, all right. So a little bit more about 30 Under 30. As we've mentioned, building leadership is one of our core goals, both through NAAEE and through the Jeep. And through EE 30 Under 30, our goal is to recognize and to help build the capacity of the diverse talent that exists in every community around the globe, to support young leaders from all corners of the globe, who are working on all kinds of different things and showing leadership in so many different ways. And next slide. So as you may have seen, each year we recognize 30 leaders who are 30 years of age or younger. The last year we did recognize 31 for the first time ever, because it was just a harder decision than ever. So we do have 241 alumni over the past 8 years, I believe. We're going into our 8th year. So 241 alumni from 47 countries. So the reach of this program, both geographically and in terms of numbers, has just continued to grow over the years. And it has really added just so much value to the alumni community, which we'll talk about a little bit. And our alumni have really been instrumental in helping to spread the word about the program, and also help create this valuable virtual alumni community that we've been working to build. So now we're going into our 8th year of the program, and we have alumni of all ages, ones who came in at when they were 13 years old, all the way up to now, alumni who are over 30 who were awarded several years ago. So next slide. So with EE 30 under 30, excuse me, our goals are overall to celebrate the leadership of young people around the world and to help give you all a professional boost no matter where you are in your work or your career. And we recognize that our awardees often are coming in at very different places in their career, and we think that it adds even more value to the program and to our alumni community. So as an EE 30 under 30, you would get access to the following. So you join our virtual alumni community, which brings great opportunities for networking and learning from fellow awardees and alumni all over the world. We really, especially in recent years, we've been doing everything we can to help facilitate connections among our alumni because we recognize the value of that. You also get recognition. That's a big part of EE 30 under 30. So as an awardee, we will work with you to help you share your story on our platform across NAA's network and our social media and our website, as well as your own. We'll give you the tools to help you share your accomplishment and to help share your story. And we also, even beyond your award year, we will continue to help connect you with other opportunities, speaking opportunities, other awards, as much as we can, to help continue to bring value to your journey and your career. You'll also have access to professional development opportunities throughout the year. This might look a little bit different each year, and they're usually open not just to um, the awardees in the year that you are awarded, but also to all of our alumni. These include some training opportunities, chances to apply for small grants or scholarships to attend our NAA conference when those are available. And we often have just things that come up year to year. So we do everything that we can to support all of our alumni, as well as the class of that year to help them continue to grow in their leadership. And next slide. And I just want to emphasize again that this award is not just about recognition. Over the years, we've actually adapted the application to recognize that. We now ask how you would contribute to the EE 30 under 30 community and also how you would benefit from it, because our alumni community is just an incredible group of passionate people eager to support fellow young leaders, young professionals in this space, as I know all of you are as well. And we do everything that we can to help build a community where our alumni can continue to benefit and contribute just even beyond their award year. And so we'll get into that in one of the application questions, but really wanted to emphasize that. Next slide. So you may be asking, well, what even is leadership? How do you define leadership? Since we ask about your leadership in the application, we also keep talking about it as a strategic priority of ours. And we recognize that leadership shows up in many different ways. You each probably have your own uh unique perspective on what leadership is, and you also have your own mix of leadership styles and traits. So we really don't want you to feel boxed into a traditional definition of leadership, like you have to be a founder of an organization or the founder of a program. You can be a leader within an existing program, even within not a formal organization. And so we'll go into a couple examples here in a second, but with 30 under 30, we are very intentional about not giving you a specific definition that you need to fit into. But we broadly think of leadership as leading change and inspiring others in your community, organization, or network. And this can mean so many things. I think if we were just to take 10 seconds here for each of you to think on your own about how you're doing this in your own life, or your own work, I'm sure we would get at least a dozen different answers. Or how many of us are here? Probably 33 different answers. So we really hope that through 30 under 30 and with each class we recognize, we try to capture that and show that leadership can mean a lot of different things. So we do give you this guidance of, in the form of a definition, but we really encourage you to not feel restricted by that. And just to show the diversity of leadership traits out there, especially when it comes to environmental education, we put this word cloud together from a subset of nominations from a few years back to see some of the themes that emerged from that question where we ask about what makes you a leader, describe your leadership qualities. So you can look at this for inspiration if you're feeling a little bit stuck. But we also encourage you to reflect on what uniquely makes you a leader. You don't have to just draw from the things that we've pulled together in this graphic. And we compiled these into a blog post so we can share that. I don't think we have the link here, but we can share that in the email that we send out. It's a really nice just summary of just kind of the options that are out there when it comes to leadership. And then also in the application, we give you some specific examples of what leadership can look like. And I believe this shows up under the leadership question, but Madeline will be able to confirm this as we go through the application. And so again, if you're just feeling a little bit stuck, if that definition just is a little too vague, if you're struggling at all with that, here are a few examples just to get you to start thinking. And of course these will show up differently for each of you, but we hope that this guidance will help you in addressing that question and in reflecting on who you are as a leader and helping you to share that story. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions related to about us, about 30 to 30, about leadership, but I just want to pause for a second to see if there are any questions about that. I imagine many of you are waiting for us to go through the application, which we will in a second. Yes, you've got your hand raised.
Hello, hi, I'm Shatabdi. I thought it would be easier to say it than type it.
Yeah.
Um, I was wondering, in terms of leadership, does it have to be like a specific thing that you did, like a specific program, organization, initiative, or can it be sort of like a journey of things that you've done that relate to environmental education and leadership in that sense?
That's a very good question. I think the short answer is it can be both.
Mhm.
Um, Madeline, do you have maybe a more concrete answer based on what the application is asking?
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more in just a bit here, but I think providing details about the work that you do within a project or a program or anything like that is probably what I would recommend. So you don't have to be like the leader of a project, for example. But if you can demonstrate like things that you've done to support that project or program, that would be a really great thing to include. Does
Okay.
that answer your question?
Kind of. I think I'm getting at in the sense, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but I mean like, let's say you did like writing for an organization and it's around like ecosystems, and then you also did a club in high school and then you did something else and they're all kind of related. Does that make sense, or is it better to just focus on one of them and talk about that experience?
Nina, I saw you about to talk, so I paused, but I can answer as
Yeah, no,
well.
it's Madeline, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I would definitely include whatever is like the strongest or like most specific examples that you can. So it's fine if you want to include examples from each of those experiences and how those supported like your journey or demonstrate your passions, your EE work or things like that. So I would say, yeah, definitely if those each of those experiences provides like a detail about the work that you do and why it matters to you and things like that, you can definitely include them.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and it really is about striking a balance between breadth and depth. We
Hmm.
we do like to see both if possible. I mean, if you have a breadth of experience, a lot of different experiences, that is something nice, for our reviewers that are going through and reviewing applications and making these final decisions. Uh, that is, an important piece of information for them to consider, your breadth of experiences. But we do also want to hear, who are you? What motivates you? And we are going to get into this a little bit more. And that often comes in a little bit of the depth, maybe talking about a specific experience in a little more detail, or talking about maybe the one that like you're most passionate about or that you've been most engaged with. So that's an example of maybe balancing the two. And there's one question about just generally your experience with environmental education, and then there's another question about leadership. And so you can use both places to tell your overall story and decide what makes sense to include in each one. And we'll go through those in a bit more detail. I hope that helped.
No, that really did. Thank you both.
Great. And Mariana, we can take one more question for now.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mariana. I'm originally from Brazil. My question is regarding the leadership part. So when selecting the kind of experience that we have and describing them, etc., should we really focus only on things relating to EE or ESG more broadly? So can we include social aspects of it, humanitarian aspects of it, or is it really only felt like should it be more focused on environmental education and EE, etc.?
Madeline, I'll let you take this one. We get this question actually quite a bit, so it's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And we will talk about this as well a little bit more. But your EE or your leadership experience does not have to be just with EE. So any way that you can demonstrate your leadership qualities is what we'd like to see. So even if it's not related to EE or ESG at all, that's totally fine. We just want to see ways that you are a leader. And if it is in the ESG or EE fields, like that's great. So yeah, we mainly just want you to talk about what leadership qualities you have and then show us where they show up and how.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
And I would recommend, if you can, if your strongest leadership example is maybe from a different project or not directly related to the EE experiences that you're describing, if you can somehow connect it to your work within environmental education, like maybe how you are demonstrating one of those qualities through a project related to environmental education, I think that does show an even stronger connection for our reviewers. But if you're going into it, like if you have just a great example of how you're a leader and it's not directly related to one of those environmental education initiatives, that's fine. That's still showing how you're a leader, and our reviewers are going to see, oh yeah, they have these leadership qualities and they're going places with environmental education, and we can see how those are connected. So if you can help them make those connections, then that would be even stronger.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Great. All right, so let's keep going along, and Madeline, you need to switch them again.
I don't know why that keeps happening.
It's okay. And I'll address some of the questions in the chat while you're going.
Okay, so does this look okay then?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you for those questions. Those were great and a really great segue into the application. So just wanted to touch on a few logistical things about the application first before we go into each of the questions. So nominations are due March 25th at 11:59 p.m. US Eastern Time. And make sure that if you're not in US Eastern Time, you convert that to whatever time zone you're in. So for a lot of you, you're probably much more ahead of us than this. So just make sure you know when that is. And all nominees will be notified by August of this year. Or it says 2025, but it should be 2024. We'll let you know this year for sure. Eligibility. So who's eligible for the program? So first, like Nina mentioned earlier, you can nominate yourself or you can nominate someone else. So if you're no longer eligible, if you're over 30, we do encourage you to nominate a colleague or anyone that you know. That would be a great match. And you can nominate more than one person. You just have to submit separate nominations for each person. So nominees must be 30 years old or younger by the end of this year. They must use EE in their work and demonstrate leadership through their work, like what we just talked about earlier, and be able to complete the application in English. And then also they can come from anywhere in the world. Those are the main eligibility criteria. And then we also want to give just some overall advice before we talk through each question, before we walk through the main questions at least. And the advice is as if you are the nominee, but all of it applies as if you're also nominating someone else. So just some general overall advice as a whole for EE 30 under 30, and what we've seen in some of the strongest nominations, but also some of the feedback we've gotten from our reviewers. And the first thing is that concrete examples can really help make your application stronger, particularly how you use EE and why you are a leader. So paint a clear picture for the reviewers as they read your application. So how you use EE, kind of like what Nina had just described, not only how you use EE and how you are a leader, but how those two can kind of overlap or may overlap in the future. And then going off of that, use as much detail you can as possible. We do have word counts for each question, and we encourage you to use those as a guide. So if there's a 300 word count limit, feel free to fill that whole space. Don't be afraid to take up all of that. In past years, we've accepted supplemental documents, but we no longer accept those. So we really encourage you to use those short and long responses as much as you can. If you've been awarded other awards or recognitions in the past, that is amazing and congratulations, but we also do not need that for 30 under 30. So we would encourage you to not include listing past awards or recognitions. And that's because we just want to understand you more as a person and the work you do. And so instead of telling us that you've received an award, what would be really great is to describe the things that you might have done that like led up to that award, for example. And we also have a space that you can list your affiliations later in the application, affiliations and social media and things like that. Give yourself plenty of time to fill out your application. You can notify your references before you submit your full nomination, so we encourage you to do that. So definitely take a look through it before you start. We have Word and PDF versions if you want to work offline and then copy and paste them into the online application later on. You can go into Submittable, fill out parts, and save it as a draft and come back later. So definitely start early, but take your time. Yeah, and make sure you submit by March 25th. And then overall, tell us your story. We really want to learn about you and who you are. We want to learn about your motivations and visions for the future. And some of our most memorable 30 under 30 nominations are ones that can tell a clear story about themselves, describe how they're leaders, what their impact is, and what their goals are. Okay. Oh, and then also just a note is that when you go through the online application, we have some advice underneath each question as well. And we also have an FAQ page that we recommend checking out. But if you have any questions beyond those things, you can definitely reach out to us and we can help. Okay, so Nina, I'll just pause for 1 second if there's any questions about the logistics. And if not, I'll move into the questions.
Nothing that has come in so far, but yes, if anyone has questions, also feel free to raise your hand.
Okay.
If not,
Okay,
yeah,
sounds
we can
good.
keep going.
Cool. Okay, so we are going to talk through each question as if you are nominating yourself. But again, a lot of this applies to if you are also nominating someone else, and then we'll have time for a Q&A afterwards. So if you applied last year, you'll know that this has been a change the last couple of years, is that we now require a short video, an introductory video about yourself and your story. And so one of the first things that you'll be asked to submit is a 90 seconds or less video that you can just introduce yourself. It's an informal way for viewers to get to know you. You can tell us about your background, your passions, anything that you would like us to know. And we really encourage you to share your personal connection to your work, and really kind of like humanize the person behind all the work that you do. How did you end up where you're at, or what inspired you or led you down the path that you've taken so far? And then in addition to that, we do have space that you can also share about yourself in a written response. So if the video isn't enough time, you can put anything else in this written response space. So anything that you want to share about your background, your passions, your identity, whatever you didn't get a chance to share in your video, or anything else in relation to the award. And then the videos are meant to be informal, but we do have a few tips that we do want to share with you. So one is to keep it short. The max amount of time is 90 seconds, so a minute and a half. So make sure you keep it under those 90 seconds. Reviewers are not allowed to view videos beyond that 90-second mark. Make it personal. Like I said, we want to know about you and your passions. It doesn't have to be like an interview or anything like that. We're just really getting to know who you are. That being said, talk to the camera. We don't need any other content like pictures or anything, like just you in front of the camera talking is fine. And ensure a quiet background and that we can actually see you, so the lighting is good. And we're not judging based on video quality. These are just things that help us make sure that we can see you, hear you, understand. And I also want to mention many of our reviewers all speak English or will be reading through English, and we require English for the written sections. But we understand that some people may not be comfortable speaking in English on camera. And so if that's you, feel free to speak in your language of choice, but we ask that you provide an English transcript or English subtitles. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions about that. Okay. Second question that you'll be asked is, how do you use environmental education to engage people in building a sustainable future? And so focus on work that you've already done or that you are currently doing rather than anything that you plan to do. So we want to know, like, what are your goals? What are the issues you're addressing? What are activities or approaches that you're using to reach those goals? Who is your audience? Maybe any positive outcomes you've seen from your work so far, such as like the number of people you've reached or feedback from those people, things like that. So really, we want you to describe the EE work that you've done or taken part in, and be clear about any role that you've had in these initiatives. So we suggest spending space talking about your goals, activities, and things like that, because there is another section for leadership, so you can separate the two. But if you've been a part of something EE, we would like you to kind of describe in the question what specific role you've done. So like, did you help with planning, or did you help with implementation or building partnerships or relationships? The most important advice that we have is to give enough detail about your EE work for us to see how you incorporate EE into your work. So for example, if you've done workshops for environmental education, instead of just saying, I've done an EE workshop, tell us what's the goal of the workshop, or what are some examples of activities that you hosted as part of the workshop. And that's a common piece of feedback that we get from reviewers, is that they don't want to know just what you've done, but more than that. They want to know like the impact of it or the goal of it. And then kind of how we talked about EE earlier in this webinar, I recommend that you go to NAAE's web pages about EE that we've listed earlier, and we'll send you all the links as well, just to review like why EE matters, what EE might look like, and things like that. So basically, you want to see how you're working with individuals, communities, organizations, etc., to equip people with the tools and skills to make informed decisions about the environment and protecting the environment. Okay, another question is to describe your leadership qualities and give us specific examples of how they show up in your work. Again, like Nina said earlier, we recognize that leadership can show up in many different ways and it can look like many different things. But we just want you to describe for the reviewers why you see yourself as a leader and then what are examples of that. We often have reviewers say that they wish the nominees provided more examples of how they demonstrated leadership in their work. So be as specific as you can. What qualities of yours help you as a leader and how have you demonstrated those in your work? And then finally, we'll also ask you, why do you want to join the EE 30 under 30 community? How might you benefit from and contribute to the community? So 30 under 30 often thrives on active engagement from our awardees and our alumni. So we not only want to know how you benefit from being an awardee, but also what you would contribute to the community. So if you're nominating yourself, you'll be asked to submit a letter of support from a reference. This looks like just as pictured here. So when you open Submittable, there will be a section where you can enter the reference's email address. You can add a message and they'll send a request from Submittable's email. And the Submittable email will have like a form for the reference to fill out. So definitely give your reference a heads up that they're gonna be receiving this from Submittable. But you can go ahead and send a request for a letter of support from a reference before you submit your nomination. And we encourage you to do that. They do have to submit their letter of support by March 25th, which is the nomination deadline. So make sure they're aware of that as well. And then if you're nominating,
sorry,
yeah.
Madeline, can you go back to that previous?
Of course,
Just
yeah.
to explain even more. So to send a request before you submit your nomination, you just hit that send request now button and you should get that whether you are nominating yourself or someone else. You can hit that send request now and then you can continue on your application. You can save your application as a draft and return to it later. So we really do encourage you, maybe even the first thing you do when you open the application is go to that section, decide who's going to submit that for you, who will be your reference, and go ahead and submit that because you can continue working on it. Just want to emphasize that because I know sometimes submittable can be confusing and we do get questions about this. Yep, Mariana?
Yes, just to better explain to the person that will be writing the letter of support, how long should they expect to, like, how much time should they expect to invest in this, and what kind of information will they need to provide, just so we can better explain to the person in question what to expect or how long it would take, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure I can give you an estimation on time just because everybody works differently, but they do have to answer a couple of like long response questions that are maybe like 300 words maximum about like why you would be a great EE 30 under 30 and things like that. So I would say probably tell them they have to expect like a couple of questions. And I can, when we're in the Q&A, I'll go through and see if I can grab a screenshot that I can add to this PowerPoint really quickly and just show you so you can see what it looks like. But it's not super long. It's not longer than the nomination itself. So not too much, but definitely enough time that they can sit down and think about you as a person and why you should receive this award.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about the letter of support? Okay. And then, so we'll just keep going from here, but we'll have time for Q&A as well. But also if you're nominating yourself, you will have a section where you can list any affiliations with organizations, networks, programs. You can list your social media or web pages, whatever you want to share. Okay, so then if you're nominating someone else, very similar questions. You'll be asked why you think this person should be an EE 30 under 30, how your nominee uses EE to engage people in building a sustainable future, describing their leadership qualities and how they'll show up in their work. And then, just like before, you'll also be asked to submit a letter of support from the nominee. So again, you'll put in the nominee's email address, maybe a message to them, and send a request for them to fill out their part of the application. And I see there is a hand, so we can pause if you want to go ahead with your question.
Hi, my name is Nuria. I have two questions on the person writing the letter of support. Do they get a link of how to submit it once they've written it down, or do they send it back to me? And the other question for social media, myself, I'm a founder of an organization in Kenya. So do I share my personal social media or do I share my organization's social media? Thanks.
Yeah, great questions. So when you send a request for a letter of support, either to a reference or to someone that you're nominating, they'll receive a link to go to Submittable to fill out the form and they'll submit it. So you likely won't ever see what they submit. You'll just see that whether they've completed it or not. So once you've sent that, all you have to do is just keep following up with them if you see that they have not submitted anything yet. Otherwise, you're good to go. And then for
Okay.
social media, that's totally up to you. If you want to share your personal one, people do that all the time. If you want to just share about your organization, that's fine too. And if you are awarded a 30 under 30, we also go back and talk with you before we ever share any of that information publicly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you're nominating someone else, let me just go back here. Yeah, just like if you are nominating yourself, it's the same process for sending a request, but a nominee will get a different form. They'll be asked to submit a video, anything else they would like to share, and an answer to why they want to join a 30 under 30. And they'll also be given a space to list any affiliations or web pages there. Okay, and then finally, we encourage you to explore the webpage. You can access the application here, preview the application as a Word or PDF document. We have a promotional toolkit if you want to share this across your social media or in your newsletter or through email. We'll put up the webinar recording. It says 24 hours. We will get it by the end of the week for sure. And we also have alumni biographies if you want to look through past awardees and see what they were doing. Really cool people. And I think that's all we have for the application. So if we're all ready, we can move into questions.
Yeah, we've got one, Shalom with your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I wanted to ask some questions regarding the application process. Sorry, I stepped out a little bit, so I'm not sure if my question was addressed. That was the one asking if more than one person can nominate someone for the award. This is actually because, some of my references might be so busy, so I wouldn't know if they will be able to make the deadline. So I wanted to reach out to more than one person to see if they can nominate me for the award. And that's my first question. And then the second question, does the nominee need to who if I'm sending a message to someone to nominate me, do they have to also be in the environmental space? Do they have to be in the environmental educational space, or can that just be my recruiter, or could it be like the dean of my school? Because I'm currently a doctoral student, so I wanted to clarify that before going ahead. Thank you.
So I can answer the first one, and then Madeline, maybe you can get the second one.
Mhm.
So for about being nominated by other people. So we've gotten this question. Maybe this isn't exactly your question, but in the past we have had people ask, if more than one person nominates me, if I have multiple nominations for my name, will that benefit me? Is that considered in the selection process? And the answer is no. We don't want people who have maybe smaller professional networks to be negatively affected by that compared to some people who might have a lot of professional networks, who might have a bigger network and might have more people who can nominate them. Instead, we're really looking at the quality of your nomination. So we don't have a restriction on the number of nominations that can be in your name, but keep in mind that if more than one person submits a nomination for you, you have to also submit something as part of their nomination. You have to be connected to that nomination and upload your video and everything. So in all honestly, I would suggest to just focus on one nomination, to focus on one reference who can be your reference. And that might mean, as you said, asking around who might be the best, who might have the availability to do it, but also please consider who might submit the best reference from you, who might be the best at communicating about you and your experience, who might have the most, maybe even the most direct experience with you related to the initiatives that you're describing, or who might be able to best add another relevant perspective to what you've described in your application. And keep in mind also, we don't give any preference to people being nominated by other people versus people who are nominating themselves. So if it's just easier logistically for you to start a nomination for yourself, and then you find who is that best person to be my reference and submit that request to them, that's just the same as having someone else nominate you. We don't consider any difference between those two. So I hope that answers your question. Technically, we don't have any restrictions, so more than one person can nominate you, but we generally don't really recommend that because we don't consider number of nominations on one person when we're making the selections.
Yeah, thank you. I was just really concentrated of the deadline because, a lot of people are getting busy day daily.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, I understand like the perspective. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
great. Yeah. And then Madeline, you want to tackle the second question?
Yeah, so the person who nominates you or who's your reference, they do not have to be in the field of EE or anything like that. What we would recommend is find someone who knows you really well or can really speak to the work that you do or that you've been a part of. So I wouldn't recommend having someone be your reference just because of maybe their title or something. I would find someone who really can speak to you as a person and the work that you've done and the leadership qualities that you hold.
So
That's
Madeline,
great.
oh, sorry. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
Great. Madeline, I can take the next couple questions if you want to grab a screenshot of the letter of support. So, one question, does the nominee have to have a certain amount of years of experience? No. As we mentioned, we have had successful nominees as young as 13 years old. We don't have a cutoff. We're not looking for a whole career. But yeah, so we don't have a minimum number of years of experience. If you have less experience, we encourage you to just go even deeper into the experience that you have had. Even if it was a year, but you have accomplished an amazing amount, or you've started a great movement, or you've made a great impact in the work that you're doing, that's great. It is impossible for us to say, this number of years is stronger. There's no threshold. And then another question, will the intro video be made public if you're selected, or is it only viewed by the selection panel? Great question. For EE 30 under 30, it is only viewed by our reviewers and the selection panel. If we wanted to make anything public for any reason, we would ask you first and we would give you an opportunity to re-record something. But for 30 under 30, it is only for the selection panel. And Madeline is getting that screenshot. All right. If a colleague and I are both applying, we work closely, know each other well, but we're planning to speak to different leadership qualities or projects we work on, are we allowed to provide letters of support for each other? Yes, you're more than welcome to do that. And we've had that in previous years. And we know, sometimes there's like, this is maybe a different example, but sometimes there are co-founders who are applying, and it can be hard to maybe separate out what one person was doing versus the other. But we do want to hear what your individual experience and background and passions are. So if you are kind of nominating yourself and someone else who has very similar experience, we encourage you to really think carefully about what sets you apart. You can of course explain the work that you're doing together, but really focus on what your role in that work is. And then yes, you can definitely provide letters of support for each other. And we accept nominations from anywhere in the world, any country. No, we don't have any restrictions on that. All right, Madeline, back to you.
Am I on the right view here?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a screenshot of the reference letter. So if you're nominating yourself, this is what your reference will receive when you request a reference letter from them. So this is just like information about them and what they do, their relationship to you, and then we'll ask why they think you should be nominated for EE 30 under 30. And they do have to submit this by the deadline of March 25th. So like I said earlier, when you send in your nomination form, or even if you start a draft, you can go into your submittable account and you can check if they've submitted it. And we also send follow-up emails if we notice that it's close to the deadline and they haven't submitted anything on your behalf.
And on the topic of reference letters, this is just a general piece of advice for this, but also in general. And some, many of you may know this already, but it's generally good practice to first notify your reference, but also give your reference any background information of what you are planning to explain in your application. That will help them build on what you're saying. And if there's anything specific that you want them to touch on, like say there's something you've described some leadership qualities and you're hoping that they can expand on it, or there's a specific project that you want them to elaborate on, feel free to suggest that to them, because sometimes they don't have a very clear idea of the program that you're applying for or what you're planning to emphasize. So I definitely encourage you to consider that when you're reaching out to your reference. And it's okay if you haven't written your whole application yet, but if you can give them any guidance on what you're planning to focus on, that will probably help. All right, we have another question here. Is it about references? If I knew them from undergrad and my advisor will be submitting a nomination, is that fine? Heard you prefer people we've recently worked with. I think, again, we don't have any real requirements on this, but I would suggest if you can find someone who you've worked with recently, who's known you recently, and again, I can't provide a number of years on that, but somewhat recently, just again, thinking of what might come across to the reviewers, what might resonate with the reviewers. I think it may be stronger to have someone that you've worked with recently. But if you have something that is just like, this experience was incredible and it was maybe a little while ago, that's also fine. I would, if it has been a little while, if you can, I would encourage your advisor to emphasize maybe how the experience they can talk to connects with maybe what you've been doing more recently, how that has maybe continued into, who you are right now, just to give some of that continuity, if that makes sense. right, Madeline, I'll let you tackle the multiple reference letters. Oh, I don't know if you can see the chat here. Are multiple reference letters helpful, or do we just need one?
Oh, okay, great question. So you can only submit one reference letter. Actually, the way that submittable works is you can only send a request to one person for a reference. You can rescind that. So if you don't want, like if you decide, oh, they can't do it, you can cancel their request and send it to someone else. But you can only have one person fill out the reference letter form and submit it on your behalf. So hopefully that answers it, just one.
And unfortunately, if you email us a second reference, we are not able to pass that along to the reviewers and include that in your application. We do have people do that now and then. And unfortunately, it's just logistically, we're not able to do that. So when you're thinking about who's going to do your reference, really think carefully about who's that one person. All right. And yes, we did record this webinar, and we will be sharing it shortly over email to everyone who registered. Any tips? And I know we're over time, but I think I have a few minutes to stick around. Maybe Madeline does too, so we can continue answering some questions. And again, this is all recorded, and we'll share this. So Madeline, there's another question in the chat, and then Mariana, we can get to you. Another question in the chat. Any tips for the video submission? I believe we covered a lot of that.
Yeah, we did. We did have a few tips for the videos, and I can just pull up that slide here quickly. And also, you can go back and watch this webinar. But we're going to have the recording up at the end of the week. But mainly, just make sure you stay within the time frame of 90 seconds. Make it personal. It doesn't have to be like an interview video or like a like we're not promoting your organization. We just want to know about you, your passion, your work, anything that you want to share. And then just a few things about video quality, you know, talk to the camera, have a quiet background, have some good lighting, things like that.
Great. Mariana.
The question for me is regarding the recommendation. What happens? I don't know if you've had that case before in past years. What happens if we submit our application by the deadline? It's all good. And we had asked the person to submit the recommendation to by the deadline, but for some reason, I don't know, they weren't able to and they send it late on the recommendation side. Does that impact the application? Does it make it incomplete? Is it possible? Like, how should we go about in case we find ourselves in that situation, since it doesn't depend fully on us?
Yeah,
I
I can
know
answer that
it's
one.
difficult. Yeah, go ahead, Madeline.
Yeah, it's always a difficult situation. We'll definitely reach out to you and the referee personally and just see what, you know, if we can try to push things along there. If they don't submit by the deadline, we'll definitely work case by case, reaching out to you and the reference to make sure that we can get things on time before we pass everything to the review committee. And then we can let you know from there.
Okay. Is it possible to change the like the person we request the recommendation to in case they don't submit by the deadline?
Yeah. If they haven't submitted anything yet, then you can go into your application and you can cancel their request and you can submit one to someone else.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
And Madeline, do you know if you've already submitted your application? Can you edit that? Not
The
sure.
nomination form or the reference letter?
The reference piece.
I'm actually not sure. We can double check.
So yeah, just if you haven't submitted your application yet, like if you haven't at the end clicked submit, you can definitely go in and change the email address for your reference. If you've already hit submit and you go in and you see it won't let you change that, just email us and we can open your application for editing. We don't know the specifics of submittable if it allows that. So if any of you run into that issue, you can email us and then we can open your application for editing.
Okay,
and
sounds
then you
good.
can do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Hopefully not, huh? Hopefully we won't get to that point, but we never know.
Yeah, no, I know, but it happens. Yeah, we see it all the time. You know, we've all experienced it personally. And often we are able to have a little bit of flexibility, but we can't guarantee it. So we do encourage you to do everything you can to check with your reference. We also send reminders, as Madeline said. So I believe you can also resend. Can you resend the request, Madeline, to your reference?
Yeah.
So in your application form, you can hit like resend the form. I don't remember the exact words, but you can sort of send a reminder to your reference. And yes, but if you're having difficulty with that, we'll do what we can to work with you within, sometimes we have quite a tight timeline depending on the selection timeline, but we'll work with you as much as we can. Great. And then I think maybe this is the last question now. How many people typically apply? In recent years, it's been anywhere between like 180 and like 230 or so. I would say maybe within that range over the last maybe 4 or 5 years. That's typically the range that we see. Yep. All right. Well, Madeline, you have just a couple last resources to share, and we are recording this, so if you have to drop off, we understand, but wanted to give you a couple ways to stay connected.
Yeah. For those of you still here, just a few things. We do, and like I said before, we have so many resources on both of our websites, NAAEE and JEEP websites. But just wanted to highlight two things for you before we close out today. So one is NAAEE has a conference and research symposium every year, and this year will be in person in Pittsburgh in the United States. And we will have a call for presentations coming out soon. So if you subscribe to our newsletters, we'll notify you then, but also you can keep checking the conference webpage. And if you're interested in presenting, make sure you stay tuned for that coming soon and save the date for the conference if you're interested, November 5th through 9th of this year. And then second, we have EE Pro, if you haven't heard about that. It's NAAEE's online hub for environmental education professional development. So it's a great place to connect with other EE professionals. You can find lots of resources, opportunities, events, and jobs, and you can post your own if you have an organization and you want to share things like that, or anything else. Several groups that you can join, blogs, just a lot of things on there, and it's free to sign up and join that. And that is all I had from me. I didn't know I saw hands, but maybe we're all okay here. Don't see it anymore.
I see, yeah, I think question in the chat. Can we send abstracts for the conference? Even if we're not selected for the award? Yes, that call for presentations is open to the public. It's NAAE's annual conference, open to anyone. So you do not have to be a 30 under 30. You don't have to be connected to us already in any way. We really welcome anyone to submit for that. Also, we do have a LinkedIn group for young professionals, which I realize we should have mentioned here. We can send the link to that in the follow-up email with all of these links and the recording and everything. But that is another great way to stay connected, to hear about opportunities from other young professionals in the field. Another question about the conference: only scientific abstracts or practice abstracts welcome? I would, for the question about the conference, I would suggest waiting to see when the call for presentations comes out, because that includes a lot of specific guidance about the priorities and what they're looking for. So keep a lookout for that. And then there's also a contact email for the conference for specific questions. All right. Well, okay, one more one other question. Can we include images and represent our educational work in videos? Are you referring to the 90-second video that we talked about earlier? I'm not certain what video you're referring to. Feel free to email us. Oh, you've got our email there, and we'll be happy to help.
Yep, and
All
then
right.
a few of the links, and again, we'll send these through an email, but 30 under 30 page has the application and everything. This is the email you can contact us to send any other questions, and definitely check out the FAQ. And thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Best of luck. We really look forward to reading all of your nominations and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks, everyone. And I'm going to save the chat so that we can keep record of these questions. Great. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.